Heaven we call the D1Baseball podcast. I am Michael Patrick Rooney, a proud Notre Dame football fan. I am joined by Kendall Rogers, a proud Texas A&M football fan, joined also by Aaron Fitt, who doesn't care for college football but dominates fantasy football. You're a fan of – what's your fantasy team name, Fitty? 50 Cent, right?
I've got too many to remember. That's one of them, yeah.
Who are you rooting for this year in football, Fitt?
We're rooting for Mr. Brady, of course.
Okay, I was just making sure that some other player didn't go somewhere else, so you decided to root for that.
We've got 20 years of history with Mr. Brady. We're going to stand by that one.
Oh, Senior Brady, gentlemen, we have a special treat today. We are joined by the director of credibility at D1Baseball.com, David Seifert. The only real scout amongst us here. Seif, welcome aboard. Great to have you back. We're going to talk a lot of scouting stuff, a lot of prospect stuff today. So that's why, I'll speak for myself. I'll just get out over my skis. I'll talk ridiculousness, and you'll just kind of bring us back to the specter of credibility. So how are we, Seif, by the way? Good to see you.
All's good. Good summer, Cape, college collegiate national team, and just getting caught up with things. So good to be back here chatting with you guys as well.
That's it. Kendall, by the way, side tangent, Seif is left-handed, and I love that he brings a little left-handed, we match up better against lefties when Seif's on the podcast. Are you left-handed, Kendall, or are you right-handed?
Right, left-handed. I throw right-handed.
Wow.
Okay.
Backwards profile. I don't like it.
No,
yeah.
No power. No power.
That's great. Cody Ross.
That's why I wrote and didn't play after high school.
I see. Well, there you go. Hey, gentlemen, let's thank our sponsor. Today we are brought to us by, this is brought to us by Driveline Baseball. Driveline offers a variety of training, education, software, and hardware solutions for both players and coaches. Coaches, you are certainly overwhelmed by collecting different data sources, mass athlete programming, third-party analytic insights. It's a lot. It's a lot on coaching baseball in 2021. Here's what you do. Call or email into support@drivelinebaseball.com. Get yourself set up with a custom player development bundle on Driveline's track platform. Look into a Driveline certification that will empower you to run Driveline type training, pitch design, and or biomechanical data collection with products like Modus. So again, we really appreciate our friends at Driveline. These guys have been awesome. Awesome to us, awesome for the game. So gentlemen, what I thought we would do is I want to have Seif tell us a little bit about the MLB Draft League. It seemed like it just went awesome considering it was so last second. And then we're gonna each pick a player from Team USA that stands out. We'll do the same thing for the Cape, and then that'll kind of naturally lead us into our 2022 draft list, which is coming out imminently. By the time the listeners hear this on the podcast, the 22 draft list is probably out on the website, which is awesome. And so again, to me, guys, the summer and fall ball, it's one of my favorite times of the year in college baseball. It's really the beginning of the next season, and everyone gets a fresh start. It's so cool. So, Seif, let's have you kick us off. How about your just kind of big takeaways from the MLB Draft League this summer?
Well, like you just mentioned, it was kind of last minute in the sense that I believe it started coming together in September, October, and I think it was not finalized until early November. So a little behind the eight ball as far as, getting good players signed for your league. A lot of those guys were already in the Cape Cod League or, the other leagues around the country. So it wasn't so much a scramble because with Prep Baseball Report, we already had loads and loads of guys identified, especially in the smaller colleges and specifically to the junior colleges. So getting players into the league wasn't a problem. We knew many, many talented players. I think the biggest initial was a misperception about the league. I know a national writer wrote about how he interviewed scouting directors, and either they weren't going to scout it or they thought the rosters were an independent tryout roster. So, me being one of the one of the people getting players for the league, I took that a little bit personal. So, you kind of up your game even more. And at the end of the day, there were an actual 91 players that were either drafted or signed into pro ball. Of those, there were 39 draft picks, and there were 21 that were signed as minor league or non-drafted free agents into an affiliated club. So total of 91 overall. And then in that, again, there was 31 that signed independent leagues. So 91 players overall. It was only a 16 league. So I think that just speaks for itself. So it was nice. The highest rated guy was Alex Ulloa, who was an Okie State signee. He actually was the highest drafted out of the draft league, but he was one of only 2 of those 39 that did not sign. So Uloa, hope I'm saying his name right because you guys know me by now. He's no longer going to Okie State. He's going to Yavapai Junior College. So that was the top guy drafted. And then the next one was Mitch Bratt, a Canadian lefty who had signed to go to Florida State. He was a 5th rounder by the Rangers. And then right after him was Mason Auer, who was actually Missouri State bounce back, went to San Jack in Kendall's neighborhood just down the street from Kendall. He was signed in the 5th round by the Rays. So those were the top 3 guys. It turned out to be, a huge success. I actually was on the phone earlier today with the president of the league, President Carrick Jackson, and I was giving him a hard time. I challenged him to get Kumar Rocker for the league for next year.
Ooh.
So Kumar's got to pitch somewhere, right? I mean, he's got to go somewhere. He's got
lofty goals. I like it.
Yeah, lofty goals, especially so. Rocker's going to bounce back with just huge TrackMan data, improvements and everything else. So I told Carrick, I was like, hey, let's go.
Yeah. You're right, Seif. Like I thought Kumar might just do like a couple workouts, but yeah, like what's the harm in him throwing in 1 or 2 or 3 games, right? Like every scout knows that this kid's dominated college baseball for 2.5 years. So it's really like just pitching in a game for the purpose of getting that TrackMan data, it would seem.
Right. 2 or 3 outings right before the draft. Boom. There you go. But it's just kind of a mystery where he's at right now and what he actually is going to do, because initially I thought he was going to be, an overseas sign, right after the draft or right after the signing deadline he did sign. I was like, oh, he's going to Japan or he's going to wherever. But now it's, 2 months later. So it's kind of like, what's going on with Kumar? But he will not be on our top 2022 college prospect list because he's not in college. Aaron and Kendall talked me down on that one. So he won't be on that list that we talk about later on this pod. But nonetheless, he's not forgotten.
Yeah. Hey, Seif, let me ask you this question. One of the questions for the draft league that at least I was curious about is, and again, the number of kids that sign professionally out of the draft league. I mean, I wouldn't have guessed in a million years the number would be that high, not because I don't think it's a good idea for the league, but just because you guys got such a late start, right? Like it felt like that was going to be the hardest thing to overcome. So incredible job on that. The question that I remember having was, okay, after the draft and these kids leave the league, how do you fill in the gaps behind them? How did that play out this summer?
That was the toughest part. I mean, actually, just providing players for the league for the season, because it actually started 2 weeks, maybe, I don't want to say 2 weeks too early, but for the first 2 weeks, it was a lot of temporary players. So we filled in. And again, we have, Prep Baseball Report, we have scouts throughout the country, over 150 scouts. So it was a hard process, but it was made a lot easier with all the good scouts that we do have and the database that we did have. And we really focused on smaller schools, Division II, Division III, and JUCOs, especially hitting the JUCOs hard. And those kids are the hardest to scout, just because scouts, as a former area scout, you know what you see the tools, but you're not as comfortable because their numbers, their stats don't mean as much because they're facing guys throwing 84. There's no background on the stadiums, like the Kansas Jayhawk JUCO League. Everyone has 25 home runs because the wind always blows out, for example. Up in the Northwest, they play with wood bats in a different environment. So there's really it's tough to grade those guys. But when you get them all together in the same league playing against each other, up in the MLB Draft League, that's when you can really see the tools and then, gaining stats that have, some credibility when they're weighed against each other. But so how did we do it? The first 2 weeks, like I said, it was a lot of temporary players. Those guys came in and we retained the best ones, the ones that had tools were putting up numbers. And so then we kind of just build the rosters off of those. Then really a lot of the 4-year guys from the Power 5 conferences came in, mixed with the mid-majors and the smaller majors too. It just wasn't, we didn't really focus on the Power 5 because those guys were already going to Cape or they were signed, wherever they were placed back in September, October. So we just kind of built it from there. But the biggest challenge was after all those guys left, we had the 39 guys drafted. A handful of those guys did stick around, but most of them signed right away and got into affiliate ball. But the hardest part was when the clubs came to get the free agents, because guys have putting up good numbers, they have good stuff, they're throwing 96. Why wouldn't you want that guy? So when the affiliated clubs started, signing those guys one by one, you got to replace those guys one by one. And then the last thing that really crushed us was when the independent leagues, they want to, it's the last 3 or 4 weeks of their season. The independent leagues came along, just signed pitcher after pitcher after pitcher with, the guys with no eligibility left, or the guys that just wanted to get in a pro ball that maybe had a COVID year left or something like that. So that was a hard part towards the last week or two of the MLB Draft League season. It was, the rosters were, each roster still had 10 or 11 pitchers, but it certainly wasn't the same caliber of players and the caliber of play that it was, the first 8, 9, 10 weeks of the league. So it was hard. I'm not telling you it wasn't stressful, but I was a part of a team, and the team got it done.
Yeah, what a great, I think what you just said, Saif, is spot on. Like, considering all that was stacked against you guys. When you guys started this thing, every player's summer plans were already spoken for, basically, right? And just, you guys kind of had to insert yourself into that marketplace. Like beyond my wildest expectations personally. Well done by you guys. That was really incredible.
Thanks.
So
we didn't really set a number of guys. We want X number of guys drafted, or we want X number of guys in a Pro Bowl. We really didn't set a goal with that. Those numbers just kind of happened. It was really rewarding to see, for sure.
Yeah. Hey, boys, let's go. Let's fast forward to the next college season. And like we said, we'll start with the college national team. We'll then do the Cape, and then we'll work our way to the 2020 or the 2022 draft class list that's coming out imminently. So, Kendall, I'm going to start with you, and let's start with the college national team. And let's just go one, each of us pick a player and see where that takes us. So who's a college national team player, Kendall, that's top of mind for you from this summer?
Well, I think it's a kind of an obvious one for me. It's going to be, Reggie Crawford. I think we look at the stud out of UConn. I first saw him, Maroons, you and I first saw him a couple of years ago at Salt River as a hitter. And we kind of both thought that day that I think they played Vanderbilt that day. And in that individual game, like, he was the best hitter in that game. And so to see him do what he did on the mound, for Team USA this summer with a fastball up to Saif, you saw him up to 98, 99. To see him that had that kind of arm, I was just talking to Josh McDonald from UConn, their pitching coach, a couple of weeks ago, and obviously he's really excited about him because you talk about he is exactly the way you draw up a premier prospect. And so you've got a guy that can go out there and hit 350 with double-digit bombs, or you can put the guy on the mound and he's going to throw a lot of gas. So the thing that'll be interesting to me to kind of see what Josh does with him this fall and going into the spring to kind of refine his stuff. Because, you know what? He throws hard. He's how you draw it up. But, they want to put him in a potential starting role. They want to be able to throw him 3 or 4 innings in a game and have him kind of sustain not only his velocity but his overall stuff. So I'm just really intrigued by him. He is the total package, and he's a big reason why he's going to be very high up our prospect rankings when they come out.
One thing, Kendall, just to file away for you, Reggie Crawford, Pennsylvania native. I don't have a great feel if he's from the right side of the state or the wrong side of the state, so I do think there's a chance he's an Eagles fan. I'll get back to you on that, because obviously if he's an Eagles fan, we know the bar fight meter reading is going to be off the chart, so as if this guy couldn't be enough of a prospect already. So
hopefully Reggie doesn't boo Santa Claus, though.
Or throw snowballs at him, especially with his fastball. Fitzy, give us a CNT player.
Yeah, a couple of guys that stood out to me that I'll just mention real quickly. One of them, just sticking with the pitchers, Brandon Sproat. He came in as a kind of a raw arm strength guy for Florida. And what I was impressed with it in my look at him with Team USA was it seemed like the pitchability is starting to come. And he's not a finished product yet, but I thought his ability to throw strikes and to spin the breaking ball better than I'd seen it before. With tight bite and some power to it. It's still kind of more fringe average right now, but it's flashing better. It's improving. And then the changeup too, I thought, continues to get better. This is a guy that last couple of times I'd seen him, it was more, he's got velocity and that was it. And he still showed us, I think 97, 98, maybe 99 this summer, but with improved pitchability. So definitely a guy that I think is on the come. And then from the position player side, Gavin Cross, I really have liked this guy for a couple of years at Virginia Tech. He had a monster year this past spring. But I still kind of feel like this summer was his coming out party, on the national level. I think now people are really taking him seriously as a not only a first rounder, but potentially a top half of the first rounder. I mean, it's one of the better pure hitters in the class. He does have real power. He throws. I think it's a classic right field profile. He's a good athlete. And he's got now a pretty long track record of putting up numbers, and including this summer. So, and I know that's a guy that Saif, you were really impressed with as well this summer.
Oh, without a doubt. And I'd just like to let you know, Runes, real quick. You introduced me as the only scout on this podcast, but I'll tell you what, Fitty is a hell of a scout, because so many times he sees these guys a year and a half before they become mainstream, and he nailed another one with Cross. I mean, that guy, he is just up there to attack the baseball. And it's not just this crude hack either. I mean, he's up there with decent plan and decent swing, and he's strong. He can drive it. And he was really impressive because I had never seen him before either. So, but one guy Fitty didn't mention on the CNT that I thought he was going to, because another guy he identified over a year ago was Carson Weisenhunt. Did I say the last name correctly?
Weisenhunt, I think.
Weisenhunt from East Carolina. I was really impressed with Weisenhunt. I actually have him ahead of Hunter Bartko on my overall list. That's just me, and maybe everyone's telling me, oh, you're wrong, but that's how much I like this guy. I mean, he's 92, 94. He has a plus changeup. It's an out pitch, and he also can spin a breaking ball for strikes, and it's an effective pitch. It's average it's at least average, if not above. He's 6'3", 220 pounds. He's got the durability. He's got some deception. He was probably, outside of Reggie Crawford, who Kendall mentioned, Weisenhunt was the most impressive CNT arm, as far as pitcher and stuff, the whole package. I mean, they had better arms, obviously, but I really liked what Weisenhunt brought to the mound when I saw him.
And I agree with you, Saif, by the way, on him over Barco personally. For me, I mean, I'm obviously all in on Weisenhunt. I saw him a couple of times this spring, and one of them, I mean, you talk about that changeup. I think I counted like 30 swing and misses or more with that pitch. I mean, it's insane. Wow. Just the ability. I think it's the best changeup in the country right now. I just think it's that good. He throws it with such conviction. It has fade. It has sink. He can manipulate it. It's really a fantastic pitch. And like you said, that breaking ball, I mean, you see it on the right day and you're like, whoa, this is legit. It's a hammer. So, yeah, I mean, for me, it's all there. It's just a matter of him staying healthy for the full spring and proving that he can be that workhorse guy. And I think he can.
Yeah, I mean, lefties like him go in the top half of the first round. I mean, that's just where, his stuff, his size, he's a starter. That's just kind of where he goes. And also to clarify, Runes, Reggie Crawford, I'm not sure if he's an Eagles or a Steeler guy because he's from the Scranton Wilkes Barre area, so you can kind of go either way there, right? Or
yeah, that's what those kids tend to get. They get swooned by the New York team sometimes. So yeah, you're right. Yeah, Saif, he could go a lot of different directions. We may have to have a sit down this fall. I might have to coach him up on that. Hey, Saif, I'm going to come back to you on a player. I'm going to come back to you and Kendall on a player from the college national team. But Fitzy, I want to ask a follow-up question on what you said, Brandon Sproat. And that's pretty fascinating to me because I can't remember the last time we had this much uncertainty on the Florida Gators rotation. It just always feels like you either know the dudes or you could see them coming, right, from 100 miles away. And I don't necessarily feel that way this year. Like even Hunter Barco's got a lot to prove this year. And so is Sproat, I just have always chucked him into the reliever bucket. Is Sproat a potential candidate for that rotation, or do you think Sully's best served to just have him lock it down at the end?
I would have told you 3 months ago that he's bullpen all the way. But, I'm starting to think maybe that's not the case. This summer I think was an eye-opener for me in that regard. But I mean, again, you look at what he did this past spring. I mean, it's a 6.5 ERA. It's, he only pitched 21 innings with 15 walks. I mean, clearly at that point, he wasn't in the circle of trust and he hadn't earned it. But the fact that he did it this summer with Sully serving as the pitching coach there. So, I mean, Sully kind of got to see it and work with him and continue to develop him. I would be surprised if he's not in that rotation mix now, and he does hold his stuff. It wasn't like he was going 8 innings for Team USA, but I'm pretty sure I saw him go 4 innings and he held it pretty good. Yeah, I mean, we'll see how it continues to develop. He's not a finished product, but yes, I think now I would say if I had to guess, I'm going to guess he's in the rotation next spring, and I would not have said that 3 months ago. So again, that's why he's a breakout guy this summer.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. All right, so KR and Saif, I'm gonna want to get your guys' comments on Jacob Berry. And listeners, I'm just gonna tell you, when you see this 2022 list come out, if you have the same reaction I did, you are going to be blown away by where Jacob Berry is on this list. And I'm going to say no more. And I am a Jacob Berry fan, but I am really concerned. I mean, I think this kid's just a special hitter. I wrote that in my fall report for Arizona. You know, like this kid, first at bat I saw him have last fall in a scrimmage, 13 pitches. And you know, Nate Yeske and Jay Johnson and Dave Long had told us this kid's got a special hit tool. And, you know, there's always kind of a little bit of, I know, but he's a true freshman, and, you know, we'll see, right? And then 13 pitch at bat right out of the chute. You're like, dang, okay. So, Kendall, give me your take on Jacob Berry.
Well, I think the biggest thing with him is, you know, we talked about it the other day, but was, you know, where does he profile positionally? And I think when you look at this guy overall, it's kind of funny. I was looking at a photo that Aaron took a while back when he was like rounding the bases at second base for Team USA. And, like, it just doesn't look very natural, right? Like, he doesn't look like a natural athlete running bases. He's kind of low to the ground. It almost looks more like a bear crawl than it does like a run. But, like, it doesn't look pretty athletically. But, like, all the dude does is hit. And when I think of that, like, the first thing that comes to mind is Torque. Like, Torque, to give Torque credit, like, he did get better defensively. He is a solid athlete overall. Like, he's more athletic than people think. But, like, I just, like, for me, like, it's very Torquish in the sense that, like, all he does is hit. He's got really good bat-to-ball skills. He can hit for premium power. Like, just from a sheer, just pure hitter standpoint, what is there not to like about Jacob Berry? And it's kind of the same way I felt about Spencer Torkelson.
Saif, go ahead. Give us your take on Berry. You have a great comp for Berry, too.
No, I like what Kendall said, but the thing about Berry is he does it from both sides of the plate. He's not and one guy we haven't talked about yet is Brooks Lee. You know, Brooks Lee is he's a great hitter, but he is heavy on one side of the plate. Jacob Berry is not. Jacob Berry hits for average and hits from power from both sides. And the comp I go with that, because that's what this guy did throughout his major league career, is Bobby Bonilla. He was the same guy from both sides of the plate. It wasn't like you had Lance Berkman, who was, you know, left-handed heavy and just could hold the bat right hand, had the ugly swing and just got it done right hand. But I mean, Jacob Berry, both sides of the plate. He's not going to play third base, but neither could Bobby Bonilla really either. So that's why I comped Berry too when I saw him. And he's not the sexiest athlete. He doesn't throw that well, doesn't run that well, doesn't have that great of hands. But you know what? The kid rakes. And Major League Baseball, they put a lot of money. They pay a big premium in the draft for guys that hit. Torque went 1-1, and it's a really good high school class. I'm not sure if Berry's going to go 1-1 because there may be that high school guy that gets that. But man, Berry's good. He's a special bat, both sides of the plate.
So, hey, Saif, you mentioned Brooks Lee. I still have not seen him in person. When Cal Poly came to Scottsdale a couple years ago, he was out injured his true freshman season. He's a switch hitter, Brooks Lee?
He is a switch hitter, yes.
And you mentioned he leans one side over the other. Is it left-handed his better swing?
Yes.
Gotcha. That's fascinating that he's a right-handed shortstop and his left-handed swing. I mean, I guess it makes sense. He's had so many more at-bats left-handed, but. And
the interesting thing about Lee is, you know, you look at him physically, and I don't mean this as an insult to anybody, but your first thought was that Brett Wallace over there? Like he's a lot thicker than I expected him to be. But then you watch him play, and he's just a playmaker. I mean, he plays a good shortstop. Now, I don't think long-term, you know, you don't see a lot of big league shortstops who look like he does. But then again, I mean, you know, heck, Brandon Crawford was a pretty skinny guy at UCLA, and he kind of filled out, you know, but like the instincts play. And I think that's the case with Brooks Lee also. Ultimately, I feel like he probably, I don't know what you think, Saif, but I don't know if he's second base or third base. I don't know that he just has the pure foot speed to stick at shortstop, but just his instincts for the game. I mean, it's everything is advertised to be, you know. I mean, his defensive value plays up because of his instincts and certainly his body control and, you know, the arm. I mean, he throws well from different angles, and he's just a really good all around player.
Yeah, and I'm probably not going to bet against Brooks Lee from playing a major league shortstop. The last guy I did that, I was cross-checking then, and I did have him in the top 10 rounds, but I certainly didn't have him where he went. I think he went in the 4th round, but he's been an all-star. He keeps hitting home runs and keeps producing. Was Paul DeYoung of the St. Louis Cardinals. So, again, I like the player, like the bat. I didn't know where he was going to play because he couldn't even play second base on turf at a mid-major right here in my hometown. So, I mean, I like the guy, but no way did I envision Paul DeJong playing major league shortstop for the St. Louis Cardinals. So if DeJong can do it, and he's a special human being and work ethic, but so is Brooks Lee. I think Brooks Lee can stick at shortstop because it's not all about range anymore. It's about where they're going to position you. So I think Lee can do it.
Hey, Seif and Fitzy, because you guys have seen him in person. Any comp for Brooks Lee? Because I am so he's like my white whale, right? Like I have not seen him in person, and I can't. Yeah, now the Brooks Wallace thing has really got me mangled up. So or Brett Wallace, sorry. Yeah, does he remind you guys of anybody?
You got to give me 24 hours notice on that question.
Okay. So Seif, I want you to tweet
to Brett Wallace though.
You've got a Brooks Lee comp on Twitter. You've got 48 hours. So how about that? We'll tweet it out there.
You got it.
All right, cool. Gentlemen, so this is why Seif needs to be on the podcast. I'm going to take my first big shot of 2022 around the college national team. My credibility is about to go down the toilet. Well, maybe not. You know the name that jumps out at me from the college national team? Bob Moore. I think Bob Moore is going to be the best player in college baseball next year. I don't know if that makes him the Golden Spikes Award winner, but I looked at his numbers there and I'm just thinking, man, we for whatever reason, we don't miss Bob Moore, but like, I don't know. Like, I think this guy is a star. I think Arkansas, every day he takes the field, Arkansas has an advantage because of his instincts and his energy. And again, I don't love how much he swings and misses. I'm perplexed by it. I don't understand it. Like, I don't understand how Pedroia and Madrigal, who are his natural comps, had so much better bat to ball than Bob Moore. But hey, in fairness, he's showing significantly more power than those guys. And, he's probably not the runner Madrigal was, and he's probably a better runner than Pedroia. It's hard to say. He's only played second base, so he's been an elite second baseman. But I'm just telling you guys, I think Bob Moore is going to be the best player in college baseball. I think he's going to be the SEC Player of the Year next year, unless those things just become a stat fest. I looked at what he did for the college national team, and I got even drunker on Bob Moore than I already was. So there you go. Mic drop on Bob Moore.
I love it. I love that call. Love that call.
Hey, by the way, Seif, I was going to ask you about Justin Campbell. He was a guy that had really good numbers for Oklahoma State back in the spring, but your write-up of him, it seemed like the stuff kind of took a little bit of an uptick. Is that what you kind of saw from him?
I had never seen him before, and I know going in there, I just hate to admit, but he was just kind of a name on the roster, So I'm sitting there watching him, and he's athletic and he's loose delivery, and he has feel. I wish I would have saw more stuff, to just rock solid, put him in the first round somewhere. But yeah, he was a fun one to watch. And again, just somebody just going in there, had never seen before and really hadn't heard much about him.
Yeah, Oklahoma State's really intriguing now.
How do you scout? I think Justin Campbell, that's a great call up by Kendall. He's interesting because his stuff has kind of jumped around a little bit. He's 6'7", but he's really skinny, almost skinny to the point where you wonder how much strength he can put on. And he does pitch, well, at least when I saw him, he pitches with some effort already. So he's like the 6'7" skinny kid who's hard to project because he's already, I don't know, when I saw him, there was a lot of effort in there, but he was aggressive and, he was excellent the day I saw him. But I don't know, he seems to me like a very interesting guy to scout because he's got a lot of different things going on at once. What was your takeaway?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's lanky, athletic. There's a loose arm. I didn't see the effort, the big effort like you're speaking about. But the slender guys, they're going to gain strength, they're going to gain weight, and they're going to get less efforty. So I see some upside there. Like I said, I just didn't see the big stuff. I saw 89-93 with maybe a little bit above average spin rates, but it wasn't anything totally sexy. Upper 70s curveball, had some decent spin, but it really didn't have a ton of bite to its finish. And then he showed a fair changeup, feel for the changeup. And again, I didn't see this big time prospect stuff wise, but yeah, I do like the frame. I like the athleticism. I think he's going to get bigger and stronger and kind of go from there. But he's certainly one to watch for the top 2 or 3 rounds.
You know what I might be conflating too? He's a very kind of like emotional pitcher. And so I need to watch him more closely next time because I wonder if I'm conflating all of that fist pumping and all that stuff with kind of effort in his delivery. But I don't know. His delivery didn't strike me as like easy, but yeah, he's interesting. I'm excited to get more looks at him. And to Kendall's point a second ago, Oklahoma State's a pretty fascinating team for next year in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, like if Campbell throws really well in the spring, like Victor Madero's transferred from Miami to Oklahoma State, like he's obviously got, premier stuff. Like if he can get outs and improve his strikeout to walk ratio and things like that, like they could have a really good 1-2 punch, not including guys like Nolan McLean and some others.
Yeah, yep. And I saw Maderos in the Cape. If we want to transition into the Cape, and
sure,
yes, that's another guy that kind of like Sproat. I think it's the pitchability is improving, the secondary stuff is improving. Like Sproat, he's not a finished product yet. Like Sproat, he'll show you high 90s. Pretty much every time out. I mean, it's just. But I like the way he competes. I like his mound presence. He's got some fire to him, and I think. Yeah, he's going to make a big difference there. There were, so many Oklahoma State guys, returning players and newcomers who stood out this summer. I mean, I feel like everywhere I went, there was somebody. You talk about a fascinating program. I mean, I heard the other day Baden Root from Ohio State was 93, 95 in a bullpen session at Oklahoma State. One of their transfers. Griffin Dorshing kid hit a bunch of home runs last year in the Horizon. We'll see how he does against elevated stuff. And then Lyle
Miller
Green. Thank you. I saw him in the Cape also at Chatham. I mean, big bodied, corner outfield profile, real power, a lot of swing and miss, but boy, I mean, he can put a charge into the ball, so they got some guys coming in over there. It's a fascinating club for sure.
Yeah. That could easily be a top 10 team if ever, everything kind of panned out.
Agreed.
How did I miss Baden Root from Ohio State is going to Oklahoma State, Fitzy? Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Gotta love it. All right. Kendall, why don't you go next? Give me a Cape Cod player.
Why don't you go to Cy first?
All right, Syfe, coming at you.
I'm still on the Ryan Ritter Kentucky bandwagon.
Yes.
Syfe loves him some Ryan Ritter.
Is he a Parkland Community College Cobra?
Not a Parkland, but John Logan, Illinois,
Wright
State,
John
wrong JUCO. But yeah, I have a lot of history with the kid too, from high school to his freshman year at John Logan. He left John Logan after just one, the COVID year, went to Kentucky last year, and as a he wasn't a true freshman in the SEC, but he was a first-year player in the SEC and hit 275, stole some bases. And, he's a 70 defender, 65, 70 arm. He has 70 range. He just makes play after play after play. And he's out in the batter's box. And for me, that's what I've seen him just evolve over the years. He continuously gets better in the batter's box. He has an approach now. He's got a little length to his swing, but he's got some strength. He has enough bat speed. He's striking out less. He hit 331 in the Cape, which I know it's just a batting average. I get it. But, the guy's a player, and I just see him creeping. He wanted top 3 money coming out of John Logan Junior College 2 years ago. Obviously, nobody wanted to give it to him. And here we are for the 2022 draft, and he's easily a top 3 on guy for me now. So he's made his money. He's just fun to watch. I don't know. Maybe I just always see him on the right day, but I've liked this guy every time I've seen him play.
Same.
Yeah.
I'm totally with you on that, Syfe. This guy is, every time you see him, it's just like, wow, and I think I grade his arm maybe even higher than you do. I think he can really throw the hell out of it. It's just BBs, and it's just spectacular to watch. There were multiple times this summer running into him where it's just jaw-dropping plays defensively. He's just a real treat to watch.
Yeah, and like you said, BBs, but he can throw BBs from every angle too. It's not, he just doesn't have to get to his perfect slot to throw a BB. It's like underhand BB, overhand, on the run. It doesn't matter. I saw him he cut down a runner who was trying to go from third to home. He was the relay guy, and he was in short center field on the run because the guy stopped between third and home and wanted to see what Ritter was going to do with the ball. Well, Ritter forced the action and ran at him, and then the guy took off for home. And from like a low 3/4, just flipped it from well behind second base, flipped a laser home, and they had him an easy rundown. And right before that, he had run into center fielder, do a Willie Mays over the shoulder, over the head catch. He's just an amazing player defensively. And again, he's not a slouch in the batter's box either. He hit 330 in the Cape. That's pretty darn good.
Heck yeah. All right, KR, you're up.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with like a negative and a positive here. I think on the negative side of things, like I'm actually really intrigued to see what Trey Faltini does in the spring. He's a guy that I sung his praises throughout the spring, throughout the run through the College World Series. He's obviously a premier defender, but like we're getting a lot of shades of Jalen Battles here in the sense he's extremely limited offensively. I would argue that Battles is probably even better than him offensively. He had a really poor summer, at the plate. And so I'm very curious to see if he can kind of figure that out going into the spring. He's obviously a first or second rounder from a defensive standpoint, but he's got a lot to prove offensively. I think the really intriguing one for me on the positive side of things is Adam Mayer from University of British Columbia, now going to Oregon. It sounded like he was going to go to Alabama, but he's on campus in Eugene. Seif and Aaron can kind of talk about him, but he was up to 96 this summer. It's kind of interesting. I was talking to Mark Wasikowski, the Oregon head coach, yesterday about Mayer, and he was saying that the thing that's really interesting about Adam, he said, I'm trying not to blow this guy up a lot because, yeah, he did really well at the Cape. He got a lot of eyeballs at the Cape. People, had great write-ups on him. But, like, this guy didn't play baseball for 2 years because of COVID and because of shutdowns in Canada. So he's like, man, I'm trying to temper expectations a little bit on this guy. But he seems really, really intriguing to me coming from Canada and going to an Oregon program that is, on the upswing.
Yeah, and also a converted guy, so to really talk about a fresh arm with a ton of upside. Not only did not have a season the last 2 years, but he's a converted position player. I think it was the best stuff I saw on the Cape this summer. Pretty easily. Because not only was it velocity, you mentioned, up to 96 miles an hour, but it was with elite spin rate, that people always look for, that kind of riding life up in the zone. I think it was up to the 2,500 range. So certainly well, above average spin rate, but also, the slide piece, 84, 87 with or the changeup rather was 84, 87 with real deception. I thought that was an out pitch, and the slider, 2,900s, RPM rate on the slider, 80, 83 miles an hour. We're talking about potentially 3+ pitches here. And for a guy that just doesn't have a lot of experience, we'll just see how he does in the Pac-12. But I think he's going to be a big-time star this year.
It's exciting. Oregon is going to have dudes under Mark Wasikowski. This guy is such a good recruiter. That doesn't surprise me at all. That the thing about that, Brad Bohannon has got great Canadian connections. Obviously, Oregon's right there. That is.
Well, and they needed a big arm like that because if you remember, they lost Brett Walker to TCU in the transfer portal, who was a number 3 starter last year. So they needed another potential starting pitcher. Did y'all see a guy that can step in there and start? Yes. Or is he more of a reliever profile?
No, like I said, 3 pitches like that. And I think maybe his last start of the summer, I want to say he struck out 12 guys or something over 6 innings.
That works.
Something like that. In the Cape. So it's yes. Again, the only knock on him is the lack of experience, right? And so we'll see how he handles it. But the way he handled himself in the Cape, the way he got better as the Cape progressed, I thought was really encouraging.
Hey, I'm going to go ahead, Seif. Go ahead.
As you say, Runes, if we're throwing out kind of under the radar prospects that emerge in the Cape as well, kind of like Mayer, Adam Mazer, I believe is how you say his name, maybe from South Dakota State. He was 2-5 with like a 5.5 ERA at South Dakota State last year. Transfer portal. He's now at Iowa. But he really emerged in the Cape as well. The day I saw him, he didn't have his greatest day. He was good as far as performance. I think he went 5 innings, 1 hit, no runs. But I didn't see a first-round guy, but I do know a lot of scouts that gave him first-round grades from his 6 starts in the Cape. He's what I saw, low 90s with a sinker. He commanded both sides of the plate. He didn't have the plus slider that scouts will tell you that he had this summer. I saw more of a 45, 50 on occasion, but he does have a nice changeup. He can pitch, he competes. But I've heard he's 94, 96 already at Iowa, just in short stints this fall already. So that's another name to put on your radar. From South Dakota State to Iowa, potential top 2 or 3 round guy. Again, many clubs already have first-round follows on him. So another real good name this summer.
Go Hawks! Hey, all right. So let me give you a couple of names, and then I'm gonna transition us to the 2022 list. We'll have to do our 2-minute offense here, in the interest of time. So, 2 names I wrote down from the Cape: Brock Wilkin And we talked about this last spring, guys, that we thought he was actually Wake Forest's best player as a true freshman, and he more than backed it up in the Cape, put up a monster summer. And then Florida State is a team that I am super intrigued by. I think they are going to pitch as well as anybody. And Bryce Hubbard, they're really athletic, arm strength lefty. I had him in a game last spring, and he's really athletic and electric, and the ball jumps out of his hand and he can spin it, but he just like typical freshman pitcher, lighting himself on fire in the middle of innings, for no reason, right? Like just his stuff is too good, but then he'll figure out a way to mess it up like a freshman does. But I don't think he's going to keep doing that for 2 more years. And it looked like he was dominant in the Cape. And, you throw that with Carson Montgomery and Parker Messick. I think Florida State's going to be really interesting next year. Seif, here's the question I want to ask you. So think about these shortstops we're going to have in college baseball next year. Ryan Ritter, Trey Faltini, Jalen Battles. Let's go defense only. How do you line them up? Defense only.
Oh, Ritter, without a doubt. Probably Faltini behind him. And I'm sorry, who was the
Jalen Battles?
Those are all really good defenders. I'd have to say, that order. Ritter, Faltini, and Battles. But it's 2 for 2 and 3, it's really close. Really close.
I love it. Hey, go ahead, Fitzy.
We have a question here in our chat. We got chat questions on this live stream. Chase DeLauder.
Yes.
I mean, we profiled DeLauder. Patrick Eber had a great story on him today on our site, leading the site. He's our Summer Breakout Prospect Award this year. I mean, yes, this is a guy that, he sounded intriguing from the moment he showed up on campus. I remember, hearing about him from the coaching staff up at JMU, and stuffed him way up on the newcomers list as a true freshman, but he just hadn't had a chance to play a lot, right? Because we had the COVID his true freshman year, and then they only played 26 games or something this year because of COVID. So this was really his coming out party. Even though he had performed at JMU his first 2 short springs, this was really him kind of emerging as a true first round type talent. And it's big power, and it's tools across the board. He throws. I think he profiles as a true right fielder. He actually controls the strike zone, hits for average as well. Definitely an emerging guy. And there are a couple guys who fit that mold. I think Zach Nato from Campbell, again, this is a guy that I think he was a conference player of the year at Campbell this year. He really performed, but there's a difference when you go to the Cape and you do it in front of, all that scouting firepower. Now I think he's really on the map as a big time guy as well. So another very interesting shortstop who's just a good all around player.
Runes, can I give you a bonus under the radar guy?
Please. Love bonus.
So one guy that I actually found really intriguing. I remember back when he went in the transfer portal and LSU picked him up. I went back and looked at his numbers. Eric Reiselman from San Francisco. I went back and looked at his numbers. I'm sitting there thinking why the hell is LSU taking this guy? And I reached out to LSU and I reached out to their coaches, and they kind of give me the breakdown what kind of arm he has and things like that. So I'm like, okay, well, this guy's really intriguing. But, he goes off to the Cape and at one point had 29 strikeouts and 5 walks, 2.41 ERAs, up to 97. Aaron saw him. This is a really, really intriguing guy because he had an ERA over 6 last year coming back from Tommy John. But now 2 years out, I'm really intrigued to see what he can do for LSU, not only this fall, but certainly going into the spring.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, guys, what do you think about this? I want to get a couple thoughts from Seif, and then we'll let him go so he can get in the pickup line, and then the 3 of us will finish it. Does that work for you guys?
Sure.
Yes. So, Seif, I have 2 things for you. I'm curious. We put and again, you're our point guard when it comes to this stuff. So we put together the first 2022 draft list. A theme that jumps out at you as you put that list together, and then one player that really was top of mind for you.
Well, the theme is just college bats. I mean, it's going to be a year like 2019 all over again. Just deep with bats, power, average, you name it. So I think in addition to 2022 being a really good year for high school, for the preps, college bats is where it's at. I mean, outside of Reggie Crawford and Weisenhunt, I mean, there's not a lot of premium arms that have emerged for me at this point. I mean, Connor Prelip was that guy, and he's hurt. Peyton Palais had some arm troubles there at the end of the
Palette. But I like Palais. Thank you for that.
Palette.
All right. Well, next time you can do you do the last names. I just did the first names. Okay.
That's it.
You know what?
On to something, Seif.
You know what? It's like my wife. He always gives me a hard time because I call it Shanae. You call it Palette.
I like it.
Well, I think I explained this before. I think I mispronounced others' last names because my last
it's
name
an Arkansas
is
thing.
So it's just a way to get back at
You
the
have total disrespect for the Hogs. It's always their names.
Is it always Hogs? All right, I'll have to mix that up a little bit. Anyway, so I think that's probably the theme of the 22 draft class at this year. And I guess the other thing too is like there's still so many. There's going to be so many pop-up guys too. I mean, we don't have the history on these guys because the COVID year is still with us, being summer and the 4-week season in 2020. So there will be many pop-up guys. There's a lot of volatility in our list, and maybe less than last year's list, but certainly it's still more volatile than a normal year.
No question. Seif, you're the man. Go get in that pickup line.
And you want a name? I really don't have a name for you. I mean, I like Daniel Susac. Did I say that name right? Daniel Susac.
Yeah, that'll work. That'll play.
From Arizona. I mean, he's a name we haven't talked about. Jace Young from Texas Tech, another name. He'll be highly ranked. So those are two of the Brock Jones, center fielder from Stanford.
Oh, I love Brock Jones.
Logan Tanner, catcher from Mississippi State. I mean, those are a lot of good names we didn't even talk about in the first 45 minutes here. But, man, it's really a loaded class with college bats.
I love it. Seif, you are the man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Runes. Thanks, Fitty.
Thanks, Seif. You're the best.
Later, man.
See ya.
All right.
Can I tell you how much I love the catcher class that we have right now with
that's a good call.
Dunhurst? You mentioned Susac, Logan Tanner. I think Jimmy Crooks at Oklahoma is a really good player. That's a really, really good catching class that we have right now.
I agree. Logan Tanner is fun. I could watch him throw all day long.
Yeah,
I love that. Fitzy, go. What's something that jumps out for you early on this draft class?
Yeah, I mean, as usual, Seif was spot on, but some of these emerging bats too, like the Luke Golds of the world. I really am in on Luke Gold at Boston College. Just a strong, powerful, again, a guy that controls the strike zone. I don't know if he's second base, third base, the next level, but he's going to hit. That was one of the bats that really jumped out to me in the Cape this year. He's kind of similar to Cade Doty at LSU. I think they're kind of similar players that could go in a similar part of the draft, if they go out and perform. But there are a lot of those kind of guys in that category, that next cut right behind the truly elite guys. But then there are some players that have tools that we're still kind of waiting for it all to click. Like Jordan Beck. Jordan Beck actually had a pretty darn good year, but he's still working on cutting down the swing and miss. I think he's making progress, and I mean, just oozes first round tools. Classic right field profile. He's a guy that I'm excited about. At Tennessee. So, yeah, I just think this is a strong group of position players, infielders as well as outfielders and catchers. Feels like it's got a chance to be as good a position player groups we've had in a while.
Yeah. All right. So let's do this. I'm going to give you guys a position player that I love, but while I'm doing that, I want you guys to be thinking about this. So the pitching class in college is really unsettled, especially when you compare it to last year when, there were so many obvious names, like Madden, Rocker, Light. I mean, last year's pitching class was, I remember doing the starting pitchers for the preseason All-American teams. You're like, gosh, dang, we could do 6 teams of really good starters. It's not going to. I don't know. I don't feel like it's going to be that easy to fill out those starting starting pitcher spots this year. So let me give you my position player, and I'm going to come back. So a pitcher you want to take a flyer on for next year. So the position player I want to mention is Jared McKenzie of Baylor. I think he's going to challenge Jace Young for Big 12 Pitch Player of the Year next year. I just think this dude, he's twitchy, he's fast, he's way stronger than you remember. Remember, he had like 400 as a true freshman, or he threatened it for a while, ended up with a fairly high batting average, if I'm not mistaken, and then showed more power last year. I had him in the Big 12 tournament, and he's just a left-handed, for sure, middle-of-the-field guy, athletic, bat-to-ball skills, but Steve Rodriguez has really helped him learn how to get more bang for his buck when he's got the right count. So I'm all in on Jared McKenzie. I think he's going to have a monster season for Baylor this year. All right, Fitzy, why don't you go first? Give me a pitcher you want to. These guys are on our draft list, so we're not like these are not like super long shots. But we don't really have that many pitchers at the top of this list. It doesn't feel like.
Yeah, I'm going to dig down a little bit here. There's a couple of guys toward the back of our top 100 that'll be up tomorrow that are interesting. One of them is Adam Tullock. who was transferring from West Virginia to Arizona State. I don't think I saw him this summer, but reports I got where it was 91, 95 from the left side, with feel for 3 or 4 pitches. And, I'm very curious to see what he can do with a change of scenery. I mean, he was a JUCO transfer guy that had his moments last spring, but it feels like his best days may still be in front of him. So that's a guy that could click. And we got to mention Casey Hunt, because probably people, they might look at his numbers to this point in Mississippi State and raise their eyebrows and wonder why he's on our list. He wasn't really a big part of their staff last 2 years. And, of course, got great bloodlines. We've talked about it before. He's Shooter Hunt's brother, our boy at Prep Baseball Report, who was a first-round pick. Casey's got big stuff. I mean, it's real stuff. It's all the metrics you want. He's one of those kind of TrackMan darlings. Like Mac Anglin. Much higher on the list. He's a different kind of body, an athlete. I mean, Casey is quick twitch. But it's a real. He's got the high spin rate fastball, really high spin rate curveball, slider. He's got feel for a changeup. I mean, I've seen 4 legit pitches there. It's just a matter of figuring out the command, the pitchability, continuing to develop. And, for me, he's a real wild card guy, but he'll have more opportunity this year at Mississippi State. They've lost some pieces. They're going to need him, I think, to take a bigger role. So keep an eye on him.
I like it. Kendall, who you going with?
Yeah, I've got 2 guys. Austin Crow-Batiste is one guy I would keep an eye on this fall and go into the spring. He was a kid that last year, we had him ranked decently high last year. It was just okay, I thought, in the spring. His stuff could get a lot better. I'm interested to see how he does with another fall with Kirk Sarloos. But, I mean, he's up to 92 because he has a good delivery, has a good slider at times, just needs to be a lot more consistent. He's intriguing to me. And then I think when you look at another guy, Derek Diamond at Ole Miss is really intriguing to me because, I think back, this seems like an eternity ago, but I think back to Globe Life last year, and he was just as electric as Gunnar Hoagland. I mean, it was 95, 97, big-time slider. And I just kind of wonder if he's that Ole Miss guy that, they kind of hand the torch to him. He needs to be a lot more consistent. His ERA last year, I think, was over 5. But when he's on, I mean, he was just as good as those guys. And I'm just very curious, we'll have him probably in the 50s range, but I'll be very curious to see if he can become a guy that is more into that 15 to 20 range. I think he has a talent to do that.
And I want to piggyback on Crow, because I think that's a great pick, Kendall. I feel like people may be forgetting about him, but
yeah,
I was there for the best start of his life in the regional against McNeese. I think he went, where did he go, 8 innings or something like that. I mean, he was outstanding, but it was 91, 93 and easy, and the ball just jumped out of his hand. But I thought the slider, I mean, it was a real, out pitch up to 85 miles an hour, flash plus really. And the changeup was adequate, but it feels like for him, it's just kind of about maturity. And he even talked about it after the game. Just the toughness factor and the maturation emotionally was such a huge thing for him at the end of the year. And I think maybe he's turned the corner and he could live up to that big billing this spring. That's a really great pick by you.
I love it. Hey, and so Brian Recca's got 2 questions in the chat. The Trey Dombrowski kid from Monmouth. I mean, that's a big physical 6'5", 220-pound lefty. I've not seen him, but I did write up that league this year. And so he had backed it up with a really good summer. And we're going to have to learn how to pronunciate the name Rock Riggio. Is that what you guys are going with? What's your gut on that?
It's got to be Riggio. Aaron, did you see Dombrowski?
I wrote up Dombrowski. Yeah. I think it's based on reports that I got. I did not see him in person, but from what I understand, it's double plus control. Really, really smothers the strike zone, just suffocates you with strikes. With 4 pitches, I think is 87 to 91, if I recall. But 6'5", 225. It's got a good balanced delivery. The slider, I think, is a swing and miss pitch. It's not like a power slider, but it's got good tilt, and he can throw it to righties and lefties. He's also got a little 3/4 curveball he'll mix in there and a decent changeup. So true 4-pitch guy, big body lefty. I mean, those guys go. Those guys. He's going to have a big year. He could be an All-American this year at Monmouth. There's always those couple of mid-major guys in the Northeast that put up huge numbers. Get All-American honors. Maybe go in the top 5 to 7 rounds. I think he kind of fits that mold.
Yeah, I love it. Hey, I'll wrap us with this name, boys. Jonathan Cannon. We have right around 30-ish. And that's fine for what he's done so far. I just think of him higher than that. Like I 6'6" left or righty. It feels like he checks every box except for the box that says did it. He's done it. And, of course, his freshman year was the pandemic year, and then last year was a little choppy for him. He wasn't able to make every start. But I just think if it clicks for Jonathan Cannon, he's a top 10 pick. Now that's, it's a big if, but, and there's going to be room, Seif mentioned how much volatility we could have in this draft class. It just feels like if Jonathan Cannon comes on, there's room for him to make a big jump in this draft list. And so, that's what makes the 2022 college season so fascinating to me is there's so much uncertainty on the mound. And that's, I think it's going to make the season really, really exciting. So,
I'm disappointed you didn't bring up Chris Newell.
Yeah, I feel like Chris Newell is getting a lot. So it's funny you asked. One of my hometown mates asked me, how was Chris's summer? And it was. I would say the trend is positive. I think he showed this summer why people get excited about him. He also showed the areas where he's got to keep coming. Right, he had 3 walks and 23 strikeouts and about 80 at bats. But he also had 5 home runs and a bunch of runs scored in RBIs. And this guy is it's a high impact on either side, and he, not to mention the fact that he really can cover ground in center field. So, but I would say, from what we saw of Chris in Omaha, his trend, it's not, straight up, but it's going the right direction. It feels like to me.
You saw the flashes for sure.
Yeah.
And he was awesome for me. A couple of times I saw him in the Cape. It's like just more of the same. He was just a dynamic, player out there, hitting for power. I thought the approach is getting better, even though you're right. Like he's still not drawing a lot of walks, but he's using more of the field. He's just better at bats, and I know it doesn't necessarily show in the strikeout to walk numbers, but I'm seeing better at bats. And so we'll see if that continues.
Yeah, his physical gifts are pretty special. I mean, that's one thing that struck me being behind the cage in Omaha, watching them take batting practice. And man, for as good of an athlete as he is, as fast as he is, he's every bit of 6'3", 200 pounds. I mean, he's like a Division I football type of athlete. It's really, awesome.
I mean, honestly, it's like a George Springer type of a tool package.
Great
right?
call.
It's just like. And George had some swing and miss to his game, but I mean, if you hit for a ton of power and you can run and throw and do everything else, I mean, you can like a lot of people strike out in the big leagues. It's just not necessarily to the same degree, but I think he'll continue to get better. I mean, I'm in on that guy.
Yep. Well done, gentlemen. Speaking of well done, excellent potting today. Well done. Always a pleasure to have Seif. Hey, for the listeners, remember we want you to go on to iTunes, rate and review us. In your review, please give us your high school and high school mascot. We will pick a good one and mention it on the podcast. So please rate and review us on iTunes, subscribe. All that stuff helps the brand. And again, always fun. So we'll catch everybody next week. Have a good one and talk to you soon.